Jesus fucking Christ. No, not default. Jesus, fuck me. Okay. All right. Hey, is everybody? Can anybody hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I absolutely can. Fantastic.
Okay. I'm starting to wonder. I'm like, he seems to be having some issues.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Press Exit Podcast, where it is episode 13, and it's April 13th, Friday the 13th. Alongside me, I've got Shawn Petraschuk.
Hello. I'm doing Trevor's lines.
Well, that's good, because we don't have Trevor today. We've got Mr. James Paley.
Hello.
Fresh meat.
One of us.
So kind.
How's it going, dudes?
Yeah, it's going well. It's going very, very well, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, man. I'm busy. Like, I'm actually starting to understand my job finally, so I'm starting to ease into all that. So, like, now instead of, like, when I wrap up at the end of the day going, I'm not sure what I did today or if it was effective, I actually know what I'm doing from the start of the day right through to the very end.
Well, I noticed you started writing your emails in English, which was a nice improvement.
I thought gibberish worked just fine.
I mean, I understood, but I can guarantee that the rest of the industry didn't.
That might have something to do with my lackluster numbers. I'm just glad to still have my job then.
All that means is that you need to break into the gibberish market in addition to English.
See, I like the way you think. See, he already fits in. He already knows how to talk shit to me. I'm not his boss anymore. He can say whatever the hell he wants, too. I can't even fire him.
This is true.
I mean, if there's one thing people pick up on quickly, it's that they should give you shit, Shawn.
Yeah, this is a sad fact in my life. I mean, my own wife busts in on the podcast to yell at me, so...
Yeah, that's happened remarkably often, actually.
I mean, I think at least four times by now, 5 times. I mean, only once where she's been bold enough to take over the mic, but it's been more than once.
So after a week off where we stuffed our faces with chocolate, and Trevor, he didn't pass away, but he's passed on to bigger and better things, but we'll be back eventually to the cast. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I was gonna say this sounded very finite. Like, so he's not dead, but he's not coming back to this fucking show, which isn't true.
He's not coming back to episode 13. We'll tell you that much.
That's right.
Yeah, when you say passed on, it still sounds like he's dead. I mean,
basically,
I don't know.
I realized that as it came out of my mouth, and that could be misconstrued very wildly.
I would straight up call that poor wording.
I'll own it. It was bad. That's what a week
13,
off will do to you.
The Trevor's dead episode.
Oh, there we go. Episode 13. Trevor's dead.
Trevor's dead.
Oh no.
And
I'm doing it.
Maybe
you can't stop me.
In parentheses, to us.
Cool. And then what happens when he comes back and then suddenly Trevor's not dead, nor is he dead to us?
I don't know. It's a sick burn. I don't know.
It's a great bullet point on our talking points, and
yeah,
we'll just address it right out of the gate.
So I mean, I think before we go too much further, I do think we need to clear the air a little bit. I believe, was it the last episode, Paul?
It
you
was.
might be able to refresh my memory here. You know where I'm going with this, right?
Oh, I do.
Yeah. I mean, I believe I owe you, Mr. James Paley, an apology. And you're going to say...
You now.
Oh, see, okay, I thought you were gonna go with "Do you ever?" So what that proves to me is that you don't listen to the podcast, so you're fired. I royally ripped into you on the last podcast because we were talking about the Atari VCS, and you had posted an article pre-GDC when they said that they were going to talk about it at GDC. And then post-GDC, they had details. And those details is what we were talking about. And the article that was linked was the pre-GDC article. At which point, I thought it was the article from that day. So at which point, I go straight up. I'm like, James Paley needs to learn how to journo. I ripped into you, and Paul reminded me later that there was about a week and a half or 2 week discrepancy between dates. That it was an old article. So I did apologize to you on air there, but this feels much more genuine to me now that I'm apologizing to you while you can hear me.
You know what? That does carry a tiny bit more weight, and I do appreciate the walk back after the shit ripping, so to speak, that took place in the last episode.
I think, like, as soon as we're done here, you're gonna have to go back and actually listen to the last episode to know what I'm talking about, because I mean, Paul, I mean, you were there, you lived it. I mean, I didn't really pull any punches, did I? I mean, I was
really didn't.
I was pretty rough.
Do you ever pull punches though? Is that
on occasion?
You do?
On occasion. I mean, I don't hit girls.
There you go.
I guess. I don't know. No, I don't really pull punches. I kind of say it like it is. Isn't that part of my charm, fellas?
Yes. Charm is a great word for it. We'll go with charm.
Okay, charm it is.
You know, this is just one of many reasons that Trevor is actually dead to us, since I'm going to blame him and him alone for that link.
Yeah, he is the one who posted it. So, I mean, somebody has to take the blame, and I don't feel like being that guy. Not today.
It never hurts to throw a guy who's not here under the bus.
Yeah. I appreciate the saying under the bus so much more now. Like, people used to refer, say that to me all the time, throwing under the bus, and I'm like, bitch, I drive the bus. It's different. I appreciate the saying so much more now that I don't drive the bus.
Well, maybe in that case, when you were driving the bus, it would be like an inner, battle among houses, so to speak, where like an inter-driver war, where if you were actually thrown under the bus at this point, it would be because, you had angered some cabal of drivers or something,
I have angered a lot of drivers, former coworkers who message me on the regular with message of basically, fuck you for getting out. They realize how much they hate it.
Well, I'm sure you're very vocal about how amazing it is to work in your underwear on a regular basis.
I will have you know that I put pants on over my underwear every day. I mean, they're comfy pants. I mean, fuck jeans.
I can confirm that Shawn drove the bus in underpants almost every day.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. I'm surprised. I think the only thing that allowed me to keep my job was the fact that I was in a union. You can't fire me. I'm in a union. I'm going to go talk to my rep. Try it.
The underpants union. Well known in the circles of unions.
That's right.
So did you guys play any games?
I've been playing some games. I've gotten, I wouldn't say significantly further. My time has been limited, but I did spend a lot of my spare time getting further into Far Cry 5. And it's funny, I really expected the whole Far Cry is Far Cry, and it kind of is. But in the same respect, they have kind of branched off a little bit. That there's, it's like they took what they know, but they elaborated on it finally. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel the same as previous Far Cries and the whole climb this, liberate that. It feels like there's a little bit more to it. Does that make sense? I know you've played it quite a bit, Paul. So.
Oh yes, I've played it very extensively, having reviewed it. But yeah, you're totally right. It makes fun of itself and previous games in the series. Right at the beginning, you're climbing a tower, and he's going, "Yeah, don't worry, you won't have to climb any more of these."
Yeah, it's very self-aware. It's very self-aware. But yeah, I've been dropping into Far Cry 5, and then after the announcement that came yesterday, based on what we're recording here, but with the new back compat games on Xbox One. I threw Red Dead Redemption into my Xbox One X to see it running in 4K. And I mean, I don't want to say that it would hold up to a current gen game, but it is close. It looks so good. I mean, I almost wish that I could have just done a side by side right there. It's so hard when you're watching like a little, they'll throw those sort of clips up on Twitter or something like that where they'll show the side by side. But unless you're seeing it on your own TV and you really kind of get those differences in front of your face, you never really tell. But it looks so crisp, and it just goes to show. I mean, the amount of investment. Yeah, maybe you're not going to jump in backward compat to every game, but they. What is it? They also announced for like OG Xbox that they're bringing in like a bunch of BioWare titles. So Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2, I think Blinks the Cat. I was like, what?
Conquer, the old Battlefront games,
Jade Empire. And then they were showing like, again, like I say, that screen with the back to back, like what the Xbox One X does for a game like Jade Empire. And obviously it's not going to look current gen by any stretch, but the boost that it gets is insane. So, I mean, I might not get Jade Empire 2, but I sure as hell am going to play it again on the Xbox One.
What tips me off to the fact that Red Dead Redemption is a few years old is the way John Marston runs. He looks like he's got to poop.
yeah, he really does. He really does. And then, and it's just those little things. Like what I did, I climbed a water tower. Just so I could kind of see what the draw distance was like, try and take that sort of stuff in. And I looked out over the field, and like every little piece of like brush was the same piece of brush. So there's a lot of very identical tumbleweeds in Red Dead Redemption. We might not have noticed it before because they were blurry, I guess. But but still though, I mean, like I say, I can appreciate just the amount of work that obviously went into it. I mean, it kind of shows that Red Dead Redemption, as it was probably same way GTA 5 was at the time, really pushing the limits of those consoles, of the last gen consoles, and that they really would have benefited from taking that leap into the current gen. So, I mean, again, they were hindered by what they were developing on at the time, but what you're seeing, I mean, the update was it wasn't even it was a half a gig at best. It was like 580 megs or something like that. So in that 580 megs, they managed to make the game look 5 times as better. It's crazy.
Is that a scientific measurement? 5 times?
Well, as scientific as I'm going to get.
All right, I'll take it.
Okay.
Any other hot game news, Shawn?
That I've been playing?
That you've been playing?
Well, apparently, even though I've moved into the wonderful world of PR, I still get free games, which is pretty rad. So I haven't actually jumped into it yet, but I literally just downloaded Yakuza 6. I've never played the Yakuza series, and everybody is telling me that it's going to blow my mind. So I'm like super, super hyped to kind of get into that, because they basically call it like the Japanese GTA, and that sounds pretty rad, if we're being honest. And you're a total weeb, James. Like, isn't like Yakuza like way up your alley, or is that not weeb enough?
I missed the boat on this series, but like you, I've heard many, many things about every entry in the Yakuza series. Apparently, they're coming out with one for like Fist of the North Star sometime soon. That's going to take the craziness of the Yakuza series and crank it up to like, I don't know, like 11 and a half, 12.
But is that like, is Yakuza the type of series that you'd be all about, or are you about more like the visual novels with like tentacle porn type stuff?
I do have a special place in my heart for visual novels with or without the inclusion of tentacle porn. However, I'm sure if given a chance, the Yakuza series would be right up my alley.
Oh, I see. I should have given the code to you. I actually tried really hard. Like, the codes came in and I tried really hard. I claimed one, and then one of my coworkers came in and was like, damn it, I missed it. And I tried my hardest to give it to him. I sent him the code. I'm like, you use it. You're going to get way more out of this than me. And this is a guy that like I've seen praise Yakuza like constantly since I started. Yakuza 0, Yakuza this, da-da-da-da-da-da. And it was the epitome of a Canadian standoff. He refused. He's like, you claimed it first. I'm like, but you'll appreciate it more than me. Nope. And it was until I finally gave in and claimed the code. Like, he refused to let me give it to him. So, Ryan Blanchard, you're a sweetheart.
The way I describe Yakuza, as somebody who hasn't played that much, it's like if GTA was designed in the context of Japanese professional wrestling.
Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
I might be more interested in it than I thought.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely wacky.
It's pretty famous for its completely insane mini games. Like, as much as the action itself can get pretty bombastic and pretty out there, there's a lot of these little weird offshoot experiences that are somehow even crazier, like weird sport things. Like, it's just kind of an insane set of diversions that never really stop. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you take the shackles off of Japanese developers, and the sky is not a high enough limit.
Well, I mean, and we've seen that with, we've seen that with a few well-known developers. I mean, not only do they make crazy games, Paul, I mean, I know you're with me here, they know how to party too.
They do. They do know how to throw a real shindig. Yeah, we're referring to none other than Mr. Suda51.
It's funny, there was an interview, Brian Altano from IGN and various other things was talking about how much he liked, he had sat down with Suda for an interview, and I responded to him, this was over Twitter, and I said, the last thing I remember about, the last time I saw Suda, he was feeding me drinks till I was borderline unconscious. And I sent the picture of you, myself, Paul, or you, Paul, myself, Trevor, and Suda at that party. And Brian Altano pretty much agreed that that was the best picture of Suda that existed. Which I took as a compliment, because I think we, at that moment, brought out the best in Suda.
That's true. Home. And we also got to see the late, great Chester Bennington. So there was that.
That's right.
Enough of the inside jokes. James, did you play any games?
I did play a couple of games. I spent a whole bunch of time with Tower of Time this week, which I loved a lot, and I didn't expect to.
What is it?
It's a traditional, what they call like a CRPG, like something like the Baldur's Gate series or Divinity Original Sin, for the PC, where you're, exploring some crazy dungeon and manipulating your party into like succeeding in crazy battles, and it all sort of plays out in real time. And then there's this sort of slow motion mechanic that you have to take advantage of in order to not get immediately annihilated by the first set of enemies you encounter. It's quite compelling.
That's my kind of game. I miss those. It's funny in that quest to make everything like awesome and amazing, and like, whether it's graphics or anything else. I mean, and even with a game like you quoted Divinity, for example, they've added in modern games so many mechanics to make them more difficult, I almost feel like, than they need to be. I mean, there's a reason that you give me Baldur's Gate, with their updated like D&D rules, all that sort of stuff. You bring all that forward, but without adding in extra buttons and extra bullshit, it still holds up. Like, that style of game still holds up without all the extra, kind of crap that they shove in. I mean, that's definitely a very personal opinion, but I've always loved games like that. I wish they made more of them.
I mean, there's a smaller than AAA audience that feels the same way as you do, Shawn, for sure. So you do get occasionally games like this that come out, such as Tower of Time, and then like Pillars of Eternity has that very similar feel. I don't know how much of the bullshit you speak of is in that particular game series.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, like, when I picked up Divinity, I found it almost overwhelming. And I mean, I don't know if that, I don't want to say that it's because I'm simple-minded, but it was just because I just felt that there was more to it than there needed to be. So there's all this stuff going on, and it kind of gave me pause, because I went, I don't know if I need to do all this. It felt more work than it needed to be. I mean, I just want to take in a good, I mean, I kind of I want to wander around. I want to hear a good story. I want to like upgrade my weapons or find better weapons along the way. Like just really standard RPG stuff. And sometimes some of the bells and whistles that they throw in, I just find that, I mean, obviously it's probably an age thing. You know what I mean? Like there's probably a kid who's in his early 20s who's hopping into gaming and he's like, oh my God, this is everything I wished a game would be. And then you throw Baldur's Gate in front of him and he's going to go, oh God, like this is awful. Right? Well, I'm 40, so I mean, Baldur's Gate is great. You know, give me Icewind Dale or whatever, like any of those games from that era. And I look at the new ones and I'm like, what's with all the buttons? You know what I mean? It's maybe
the old
I'm
reflexes
aging
aren't
out
what they used to be.
Yeah, well,
I
mean,
can almost picture you shaking your cane when you say that. What's
Fuck
with
off.
all the buttons?
fuck off. This is like when I was a kid who had a joystick and one button. Which is true, but it's not. I can adapt, assholes.
So you're reviewing that one, right, James?
Yes, it should be up and ready to rock and roll by the time this episode airs, and I will have very good things to say about it. Yes.
Nice.
Fabulous. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Did you play anything else?
I mean, realistically, not really.
No, he climbed the Tower of Time, and he kept climbing.
So Paul, I know you obviously played some games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to let you talk about those games. I feel like Kanye right now.
I'm going to let you finish.
But
Beyonce was the best game of all time.
Yeah, no. I know that you didn't cover it, but something tells me that you might have looked at the editing on this, and I know that the embargo will be up when this podcast goes live. I'm assuming that God of War is basically all kinds of amazing. Please confirm.
You're right. I did look at it, and I can confirm that it is all kinds of amazing.
Nice.
Patrick reviewed it for us. He's given it a 95.
Ooh.
That's a good score.
95.
It's funny.
In fact, going so far as to say that this is the best in the God of War series.
You know, okay, I don't want
words. Really big words.
Well, no. Here's the thing. I mean, and you guys might be able to back me up on this. Paul, we've spoken before on the idea of media hive mind. You know what I mean? And do you notice, I mean, maybe this is something that I've picked up on, but do you notice whenever a game or say there's a series that has a bit of a reputation, right? Of like a vaunted reputation where people are like, this is a great series, right? I would say more often than not, when a new game comes out in that series that happens to be good, that the general consensus is always, almost unanimously across the board, this one is the best in the series. You know, and it's just like, is it because it's just shinier and new? Or is it really the best? Not that I'm questioning Patrick on this one. It's just something I've always wondered, because sometimes we just forget how amazing those first experiences were because we have shiny and new right in front of our faces.
You know what I think part of it is that when the new iteration in a series comes out, if you went back and you played the very first one, mechanically it's not modern. So if you were going to compare apples to apples, like they had both come out the same year, obviously the newer one would be better. It's more mechanically refined. It's got, better animation and better graphics, and probably the story's better written.
But is that...
But you can't look at it that way. You got to look back. Like, what was the impact at the time that it came out?
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, is that really apples to apples? Because, I mean, I would say apples to apples is the response from the first one, we'll say, or the second one, versus the response to the new one.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, I mean, to that end, I seem to remember that more or less every God of War game, when it came out, had a very similar response. Like, oh, hey, turns out this one is the new hotness.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what I'm speaking to, is just that, I mean, again, I don't want to, I'm not speaking against the game because I'm like super, super pumped for it, but I know that there are a lot of people who are cynical about the direction it's taken. They're like, oh, look, Sony is doing the Sony thing, and they've turned it into another another standard Sony game. So, whether that's an Uncharted, whether that's a Last of Us, you know what I mean? But that sort of vibe. I'm not against that because I'm all about a really good narrative. I'm like super pumped about the idea of the son's name is Atreus, I think. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right, but I don't really care.
I think that's right.
Yeah, but I mean, I love the idea because that changes the dynamic of the way that we look at Kratos. You know what I mean? Like, no more is he this badass that gives a shit about nothing, you know what I mean, but revenge. And now he has this being that he cares for deeply. Like, it really changes the dynamic of the series. And a lot of people right from the start have spoken out against that, going, no, this goes against the grain of everything that we expect from God of War. And I've kind of hoped from the beginning that basically all the naysayers get shut the hell up, that it's like absolutely amazing.
Yeah, but like Kratos back in the day, yes, mechanically the God of War games were incredible and like literally changed the game in some cases, but Kratos was kind of a fucking cartoon character by comparison. Like the Kratos of then and this guy that we're gonna meet this week or whatever, they're totally different individuals.
I mean, and I think that's actually a really neat point. Like, do you think that is that because the way that stories have been told in video games has started to, I feel like it started to grow up with the medium a little bit. So rather than having this over the top character, ultra violence type thing, because a lot of people are complaining, oh, the violence isn't the same level. Well, whatever. Is it because... I don't know.
I'd question that, having seen some of the video. It's pretty gruesome.
Well, okay, but the thing is, too, though, I mean, speaking to Kratos himself, it's making that character more... I mean, yeah, he's, a god in a sense, but it's making him more human, more relatable. You know what I mean? Like, he's not an untouchable. He's a person that has feelings and wrestles with emotions rather than this bloodthirsty, character that doesn't care about anything. You know what I mean? Like, humanizes him in a sense.
Well, if they'd gone the other way and kept it the same and, made another God of War games, those exact same people would be shitting all over it for not taking a risk.
Oh, yeah. Don't even get me started about how, like...
way more applaud them for taking a risk and changing it up.
Yeah, and, like, as I say, like, don't get me started on the people that, like, you're going to complain if it goes one way and you're going to complain if it goes the other way. You're never fucking happy. So just shut up.
Here comes salty Shawn.
No. Yeah. I was just going to say, I'm like, this is not going to be an angry podcast. Not like last time. I'm in a much better mood.
I'm glad to hear it.
So yeah, I'm not going to...
another beer for the record. Like,
oh boy.
This is my happy juice right here. I got to start pimping out the beer that I drink. Maybe they'll start sending it to us.
We could hope.
I'm just saying, Parallel 49, based out of beautiful Vancouver, BC, makes a great brew.
Beautiful, gorgeous Vancouver, British Columbia, with delicious, fresh, ice-cold beer from Parallel 49.
Oh my god, but that sexy voice too? Like, my god. Like, I mean...
You can hear the sponsorship dollars raining from the sky.
I can actually visualize the beads of water on the outside of a cold bottle just like dripping down in the sunlight. That's what I'm picturing right now. I was like, that's at least worth, like what you just said is worth at least 2 to 3 cases of beer a week, right? Like one for each of us. One for each of us.
At least.
I'm going to reach out. I'm going to send them this podcast and be like, listen to this shit.
Don't send them the rest of the cast.
Send us your beer.
Do not send them the whole cast. Just send them that clip. That's all they need to hear.
Okay.
Only appeal to their target demographic, and that's it.
Fair enough. So we've probably been recording for 30 minutes, and we still don't know what games you've played, Paul.
Well, yeah, despite having reviewed it and played it, for several dozen hours, I played more Far Cry 5 because it is very fun, and haters gonna hate. I think the Hive Mind had decided that the story wasn't good and it wasn't well written, which is not the case. Very good, and you should play it. And guess what? People out there are buying it like gangbusters. It is selling like an MFer
Yeah, no, there you go. That's like a really good tie into that piece.
Hmm.
Yeah, it doubled Far Cry 4 sales in like a week.
Mhm.
That's crazy. I mean,
It's
is that because there's more gamers than ever, or is that just because it's just that much better?
I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the environment. Far Cry 4 was awesome, but it was a little bit barren. I think there's way more stuff to do in Montana. It's a lot more familiar for the North American audience. A lot of people can say, oh yeah, I've been to the Rockies. This looks exactly like the Rocky Mountains.
Do you think some of the pre-release controversy tied into it in any way? Like people were just curious?
I mean, probably it spiked the interest. When you're actually playing the game, a lot of that isn't front of mind, you know?
Yeah.
Bad guys are bad guys, you're going to shoot them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that like with all that build up, I've seen a few articles that spoke to the fact like this was Ubisoft's chance to, really make this political statement, and then it's somewhat, I would say, muted in the game. And I'm not upset about that because I mean, I didn't expect it to be, and I would never expect it to be a really true to life political commentary. It just kind of hints on some things that happen to be in the news currently. You know what I mean?
I mean, it does what good storytelling does. It gives you something to go off of, and then you make up your own mind. It throws a few things at you, but it's not prescriptive.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I kind of find that like neat in regards to that was, I'm not going to say that was it Joseph Seed? I'm not going to say that he is a likable character because he's not. You know what I mean? But in the same respect, it's amazing how you can look at him and see him as I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but
he's a sympathetic character.
Yeah, and you can see him as human and just with real human flaws. Yep. And that's something that I don't know if I've ever gotten that out of a Far Cry villain in a while. Like, I didn't feel that way with Voss. Voss was just a dick, like straight through and through, like he's the villain. Mm-hmm. And Peg and Min, same thing. I mean, I didn't really feel like a human connection, where with this guy, I go like, he's just a dude that kind of doesn't have his head screwed on quite straight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people didn't bother playing through the whole game before writing a review to hit that embargo. But
that never happens. Come on.
But, I mean, it goes some places, and the ending is it's not what I expected. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, we also obviously we don't want to. We're still so early into the release on that one. We don't want to spoil that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm glad to see that it's doing well. I think we've spoken about this before on the cast, but I mean, when it comes to the big guys, like the big guns in publishing, Ubisoft has to be my favorite right now. I mean, I feel like they've just really gotten the idea of like how to succeed in today's market, but without taking advantage of their consumers. They treat us with respect. They realize we pay money for these games, and what they're delivering is pretty good. They're good games. Mm-hmm. I mean, not everyone might fall into your wheelhouse, but they're genuinely good games with like some pretty unique experiences in them.
Yeah, pretty solid top to bottom. Yeah.
You see that
hopefully they keep it up.
Well, you see that Sam Fisher is joining in to Ghost Recon. He I don't know what the details are, but Sam Fisher is doing a crossover into Ghost Recon Wildlands, which makes me happy. Voiced by Michael Ironside, of course. So I can't wait to kind of see what that's all about.
One true Sam Fisher.
Well, he says he never left. Like he's being rather insistent. He's like, I never left. Dun dun dun. So yeah, I'm all about it. All about it.
Yeah. Outside of that, I played some XCOM 2, which I'd skipped over when it first came out because I heard people griping about the random number generator and some of the mechanics, and I was enjoying it quite a bit, I would say. But people are right. If you've got less than an 80% chance to hit, you might as well have 0.
Good old RNGesus.
and fuck that.
So, I mean, okay, so, but if you were interested in XCOM, have you seen, or did you see, you might have seen the initial reveal trailer for Funcom's, well, fuck, it's like this long, there was actually an article on, I think it was Waypoint, about games that give themselves, that are like, they just have ridiculous titles that are way too over the top. And Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden was the target, which seems fair. Fair because that name is a bit over the top. But you might have seen the reveal trailer, but did you happen to see any of the gameplay for that one, Paul?
I did. That's the one that's got the duck, right?
Yeah, that's right. The duck and the pig.
Yeah,
and the chick who's got like the scale, like she can go from like human to like scaly and shit.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that one looks pretty much right up my alley. Yeah. I more lean towards the turn-based ones that don't have that random number generator aspect to them. I'd rather outsmart my opponents, have the opponents be smarter, because they're pretty dumb in XCOM. It's just a lot of it is luck, which is frustrating. I more prefer a game like
losing a game to luck. I hate losing a game to luck. Yeah, that's not right.
I've definitely seen at least a few screenshots from the XCOM series of people who have a gun pointed literally like into the head of their opponent. Like it's so close, it's like clipping into the character model, and it's like chance to hit 65%. And you're like, that doesn't seem right.
You're like, bitch, that is a headshot.
Like you're like wearing the dude's face as a silencer, and you're like, oh well, I mean, it might.
Yeah, and then you click fire, and your character points directly straight into the sky and just completely whiffs. Ridiculous.
You just picture like this meme after that, where like your character just turns to the camera and does the shrug and like eyebrows up, like how'd I do that? You know.
Dun.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like some cheesy like TV like comedy sitcom like cut to commercial ending. Da 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 da. You just expect so much better.
You would.
Well,
I didn't get it.
That like percentage to hit stuff made a lot more sense the further back you go in the XCOM series. Right? Like, am I totally off base here?
Well, I mean, I would say that not even the XCOM series, but any sort of game back in the day that relied on that, like technically on your roll of the dice. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of these things are based off of old school D&D rules and everything else. It's literally a roll of the dice, and what do you roll? And that that indicates what you're going to do. So. The thing is like as the visuals and everything else comes up to par, I mean, like you say, you're going to show this scene where your character literally has, a straight to center of the forehead of their opponent shot, but they still are abiding by these rules, which are good rules, but it's like they don't shake hands well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think XCOM 2 regressed in that because Enemy Unknown, Enemy Within, which was the previous one, and expansion, I thought it was way more believable. Not just the percentages that it was throwing up on the screen, but if you had a 50% chance to hit, you could kind of take that as a coin flip. Like, maybe I'll hit, maybe I'll miss, and that's okay. In XCOM 2, you have 50%, you're not going to hit. I would be lying if I said I could remember a time that had happened over the course of several hours of playing.
Yeah, and that's got to be discouraging, I mean, for anybody actually trying to play through the game. I mean, there comes a point where you go like, fine, fuck this. I'm just not gonna anymore, right?
Yeah, I ended up Alt F4ing it, and yeah. that was the end. We didn't go back to XCOM 2.
Did you play anything else after that then? You're like, fuck this game.
Nothing worth talking about.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I touch into so many games on an average week where it's like a couple minutes in and I'm like, not worth it, and I cut out.
Yep. Why don't we talk about the news?
The news, the news.
Boy.
I got to draw all of Trevor's lines. The news, the news, the news.
You're really doing well.
Well, you haven't. You keep promising us. You keep promising us that you're going to do outtakes and sound bites, but we don't have them yet, Paul. We have the news, the news, the news.
I know.
Granted, we haven't gotten much for emails, but we don't have, and I quote, the email. What, the email. We don't have that one.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you promised us, and this is the one that, like, if you're going to follow through on any of them, you have to follow through on, you're a cocksucker, that's what you are. That one needs to happen. Please, just make that one, and we could just throw it in at random.
I'll try real hard. And you know, I'm just gonna drop it into a cast somewhere unexpectedly. One of these weeks.
I have this feeling that because I called you out, that just before I started talking 2 minutes ago, there's gonna be, you're a cocksucker, that's what you are, and I deserve it.
The way to do it is to make sure that you don't see it coming and you don't feel like your queries were answered.
Did you hear that episode though, James? Be honest.
I might have. I've tried to listen to as many as I can, but this is important.
You would know if you heard this. We were doing our perfect list, and Trevor had a pick in his mind, and he was just, Paul started, and Trevor just knew. He's like, I have this feeling Paul's gonna pick what I'm gonna pick. And I've got this one like in the wings, and Paul said it, and Trevor just lost it. And he
went bananas.
It was gold though. Like that might have been our finest moment, Paul.
It was. It's all uphill from there. We're gonna go with that because we want to go up. We want to be.
That's right. We're always climbing.
So, anyways, Spider-Man's coming out on September 7th.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I couldn't be more pumped. It looks fucking awesome.
It feels like it's been so long, so much time where we've just been like, it's coming eventually. And now to actually have a release date is so nice.
Yeah, it's funny. We've kind of come to this expectation of like a lot of these big games that we see either revealed or talked about at E3. It's like, yeah, we're not going to see this in like 6 months or a year from now. It's 2 years. And it's true. I mean, we've been waiting for Spider-Man for a long time. I did see it at E3 last year and got like the solid playthrough of like, you know, how Spider-Man interacts in that world, how they stay true to Spider-Man's no-kill motto, that sort of thing, and how they all put it together. And it just, even then, I mean, so we're talking about almost an entire year ago from now, it looked amazing. So I can only imagine what it's looking like now. I mean, I'm so excited for that game.
Yeah, I feel like it's been too long since we had a really rock-solid Spider-Man title.
Well, Spider-Man, I thought you might have gone with superhero, and I was going to say rock steady, but you know.
I mean, come on, don't tease me like that. But still, yes, too long since we had a really good Spider-Man title.
Whoa, I'm trying to... What was the last truly great? Was it Web of Shadows? Was pretty fucking good. I mean, but it's been a while. It's been a long time since Spider-Man's actually had something that we actually want to play.
You guys worried about the QuickTime events?
Not at all. Nope.
I feel like they're not in vogue anymore, and so they won't be. We won't be like festooned with them as soon as we like turn on the game. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, I mean, I actually took some time. I actually asked the developers about that specifically, and like they basically said, they're like, look, we're not using these things constantly. We're using them in very specific situations at very specific moments. We kind of know that the attitude that people have towards QuickTime. I've never, I mean, I don't know. I don't hate them as much as everybody else, I guess, because I just find, to me, it's just another game mechanic, you know? And so what, I hit a fail state and I have to do it a couple times. Like, to me, that, it doesn't bother me. But the way that they've incorporated is actually, I mean, unless they've changed it, is actually pretty ingenious, is that, like, you might miss certain things. So basically what's going to happen is your cinematic at that moment might change. But in the it's not like it's a one and done. You still have a chance to make your way through the scenario, you know. And I mean, when you're talking about these giant set pieces where this is falling, oh, latch on to this or swing to that, I mean, it kind of is fitting for those types of scenarios. So I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I don't get why people hate them as much as they do. I
think because they were so prevalent for a while, it left kind of a bitter taste in people's mouths collectively. And so every time we see them, basically from now on, for at least a little while into the future, we're going to have that same instinctive negative reaction to the presence of QuickTime events because they were such a low-hanging fruit, so to speak, for game developers to throw in to artificially inflate the excitement level or tension of a particular scene.
And I think that's actually a pretty fair assessment in a sense that because it's reliant on a button push from you as the player, that there's a heightened sense of tension, right? But you look at even the last Batman series from Telltale, or any Telltale game, for example, that's kind of what they rely on, and nobody bitches about that. Is it because of the dynamic of that style of game? You're telling us a story, and this is just kind of some added gameplay mechanic onto our, decision making, because that's kind of what those games are about. So it gets a pass. But whereas Spiderman, people are going, oh, well, this is a game. This is an action game. I want to punch. I want to kick. I want to web sling. I don't want to just react to a button push on a screen.
Well, I mean, with Telltale, it's the QuickTime is the only action you really see. And for another thing, it's the sort of action that you can easily incorporate into the flow of the story, from a developer's point of view. Whereas, because otherwise you'd probably have to throw in a whole separate complex set of mechanics that would inevitably, if they were successful, eventually end up taking focus away from the narrative. Mm-hmm. So QuickTime for a Telltale game is actually successful in that it's more unintrusive than a proper action mechanic.
Also, that engine is rickety as hell, and it could not sustain other mechanics. So there's that.
They really do need to update it. I mean, there were some interesting articles probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago now about the culture at that studio of pumping out games at Telltale. And I mean, I love that studio and I love the games that they make, but it was definitely disappointing to hear about. It's just the overall grind and the attitude where the original studio, the guys who were originally there making these games, that disconnect once they kind of got big, they started taking on bigger properties. I mean, The Walking Dead opened up this whole new world for them, and they're known for making these great narrative experiences, but just that disconnect between people who are passionate about making games and people who are passionate about making money. And I mean, granted, everybody wants to get paid. I do have an issue a lot of the time when people talk about, X studio selling out, and it's just because we can't all survive on ramen noodle for the rest of our fucking lives. I mean, give these guys a bit of a break. Yeah, they sold out. You know what I mean? But again, like I say, this industry is already known as being cutthroat, especially when it comes to, what they call crunch time. You're in crunch, it's a month till release, and you're working 16-hour days. It's not anything that should be glorified. You know what I mean? But yeah, just kind of hearing about the culture at Telltale, it kind of really disappointed me because, I'd always up until that point thought that they were a little bit of a tighter studio than that. But it's an interesting read. I would encourage anybody to go and Google that. I believe it was Waypoint who might have published the article initially. I know that there was kind of a follow-up on COG, but just, Telltale Studios sort of development culture. It's a really, really interesting look on the inside of the industry for anybody who's actually curious about it.
Speaking of disappointment, Cliffy B's boss key is abandoning lawbreakers to cash in on that battle royale hype with radical heights.
Okay. the day before, because they literally announced it and they're like, and it comes out tomorrow. And I looked at it and I mean, okay, they're fully owning the fact that this shit is early access, but like this shit is like alpha level it's fucking garbage. It looks horrible. No, but here's the thing. I am not a conspiracy theorist usually, okay? Usually. Here's the thing. You know, I see a lot of what I would call your B-level websites and media looking at the game. I mean, it's got a 36%, I think it was, rating on Steam. Like, people are going like, look, we get that this is free and we get that this is early, but this is bullshit. You are trying to capitalize on something that somebody else already did better than you. You know what I mean? Most B-level like sites that really don't have anything on the line, you know, they don't have any sort of shareholder money, everything else, are like, this game is bullshit. This game shouldn't have been released. This is a cash cow. This is something that is capitalizing on what's popular and basically doing everything we hate about games, which is taking advantage of a consumer who's ready to open their wallet. But then IGN and Polygon, I think GameSpot as well. They're all like, why Radical Heights is better than you think type articles. And I'm like, could you guys be any more obvious that you're just shoveling shit for cash? Dr. Disrespect is all over fucking Twitter. I mean, apart from Ninja, who is like the numero uno in streaming right now because he's all up on Drake's dick, is the third beer's kicking in, boys.
God.
No, but that's the thing, though, is like, you know, the second highest rated or most popular streamer who is making a living off of PUBG and now Fortnite is got basically what boils down to commercials, because you can tell he's not actually playing. There was this thing this was about like 3 months ago, I think, with Snoop playing, I'm pretty sure it was Fortnite. I'm pretty sure it was Fortnite. It might have been PUBG, but anyway, it was basically, it showed Snoop playing the game, but then when you watched it, you could tell he wasn't actually playing. It was just him giving voiceover to a bunch of shit that was happening on the screen. Because, I mean, he could not have possibly been actually playing because he had a joint in his mouth and he kept, like, smoking it. Like, he had his hands up and it's like, you're not actually doing this. You're smoking weed, dude. You know? And the same thing, you can tell that Dr. Disrespect isn't actually playing this game, but he's talking about how amazing it is. So you know that he is flogging it off because he's well known and they just gave you a paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. It really bothers me. I mean, these are sites that people, and I mean, I don't know. It's not like I'm trying to direct people to go like, look, go to better sites. I don't want to be that guy because I work with these people and they're great. I mean, a lot of the people that I am working with are really great. It just feels very insincere when a visibly inferior product like Radical Heights, which is a piece of shit right now, has articles from these giant sites that are trying to build it up to be something it's not.
And multiple sites.
Yeah,
multiple sites is the thing.
It's a lot of sites that are like, it's great. It's like, I saw an article like, what Radical Heights is doing better than PUBG and Fortnite? I'm like, the answer to that question is nothing. Nothing. It's not doing anything better yet. And I don't even like that kind of game.
Okay, but so 2 points. I just want to break in here with a couple of points. One, I did see a larger publication give a sort of resounding meh about the game when it, just like today or yesterday.
Was it PC Gamer?
It was Kotaku, actually.
Yeah, that
said they
sounds
had
like Kotaku.
A play session with it, and they came away not especially impressed, which is in line with the regular user appraisal. And B, it doesn't really matter how many huge publications decide to lavish this game with false praise, so to speak. The numbers will play out, and it's kind of looking, based on the early reviews, like this one and Lawbreakers might share a super similar fate. I don't know. Too early to tell. However, possibly that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, as much as, you've got all this media voice behind what you're doing, whether that's paid or not, I mean, ultimately, the user reviews in a sense is what's going to be the nail in the coffin for any game. And I mean, it's funny, as much as, you know, and this is something I'm learning, especially in PR, is this is like, as much as you're trying to bring exposure around for a game, you can only shine up a turd so much. You know what I mean? And eventually people are going to go, okay, well, we played this game that you talked up so much, and they're going to go, yeah, we disagree. It's actually kind of a piece of shit. And that's fine. You know what I mean? I mean, the PR game is trying to get you interested, and then we leave it up to your hands. You get it in your hands, and you go, you know what? It's not quite what we'd hoped for, or whatever else, and that's fine. My issue is when you have what I would consider to be trusted media. When I have friends, for example, who knew that I owned my own website, and I was passionate about it. I've got a team of passionate writers, you know, and I would say, hey, did you see the review on our site? And they're like, no, I went to IGN. I'd be like, first, fuck you, you're a bad friend. And second, when you have stuff like this that seems so obviously insincere, it just makes it hard to swallow for, like I say, like for anybody who has that view of this industry. It, like for me, that bothers me. That tactic really makes me upset.
You know who's not on the take is Kaz Hirai CEO on Twitter, who writes, Radical Heights isn't Cliffy B's first Battle Royale game. Lawbreakers started with 100 players online and very quickly only had one left.
Oh God, I hope they keep his account going.
Savage.
So good.
It's literally one of the best accounts on Twitter. I mean, we all know it's a parody account, but like, I mean, I really want to shake hands with the guy behind this account. I really do, because when he chooses to tweet, like, it's pretty significant. Like, dude spits fire. It's so good. It's so good. And I mean, in this case, it's about as on point as ever. Is it not?
It is.
Yeah. He's definitely spoken the truth at this point in the game.
Oh my God. It's just so good.
Well,
I really appreciate it when people will like retweet or quote this account, assuming it's like the actual CEO. And then somebody else will like kindly, politely point out, you know, this is a parody account, right?
Yeah. I believe if you were to probably break down tweets and retweets from that account, that like an alarming number of them, if not the majority, would be that exact answer. You know, this is a parody account, right? And everyone's like, what?
Wait a minute.
Like, I thought that was kind of bold for Sony.
Here's a thought. What if Kaz Hirai actually runs this account?
Oh my God, don't make me laugh. That just that thought. I mean, when you think about it, in a sense, when you think about it, if they actually did and then pretended like it's a parody account, that's got to be one of the most brilliant pieces of marketing we've come across in a long time, because they get to claim innocence because it's an anonymously run account. Yet they can rip into their competitors like nobody's business.
I think Kaz has his own account too.
Wow.
But,
hey,
you know,
man,
maybe,
I know how to use TweetDeck. I can switch between two
exactly.
accounts at the same
when
time.
When he's got to spit hot fire, he just goes on to ex-CEO Kaz Hirai.
I want this so bad to be true right now. Like, I want to know that there's Kaz in a boardroom going like, fuck these guys, I'm going to tell them what's what.
Kaz knows best.
Yes.
Yeah, but
maybe that's why he's actually moving on. He just wants to devote himself to being an asshole on Twitter full time.
Wants to claim the account. Yeah.
It's really me, bitches.
It was me all along.
Oh my God, that'd be so good.
And then after he claims the account for himself, suddenly the quality of the burns just plummets because the imposter has been pushed out, and now he has to deal with actual Kaz Hirai, and he just can't measure up to his like doppelganger.
Oh, but the doppelganger is just savage as shit. Like savage AF. Like no joke. This isn't the first time, you know what I mean, where people have kind of been able to stand back and go, Yeah, this one was so fucking good that Cliffy actually quoted it and went, "Yeah, you got me on this one."
Damn.
Cliffy fully owned it and was like, "Yep, you win. You win this round. You fucking got me." Like, it's that funny.
Well, let's dip into one last news topic. There are some other things going on, but there's one that I think we really need to cover. And that is the fact that teabagging is bad, but only when you do it to a lady. Shawn, I know you have thoughts about this.
All right. Well, okay. Here's the thing. The person that this happened to, and her significant other, I know, and I know them well enough to know that I really like them. The way that this story, they were vocal about it being basically a poor move. So to put this in perspective for people who are ultimately going, okay, you're talking about teabagging, but what? Amanda Farrow is a journalist. She's actually from Vancouver. She lives in New Jersey now, but she's from Vancouver. She was demoing a game at PAX East. She was, I would say, honorable enough to not disclose the developer or anything of that nature. But what happened is that she's playing through the demo and she got team killed by somebody, obviously on her team. And then that person proceeded to teabag her. And we all know what that means. And she her response was, "This is why I don't play these games. Thanks for the demo." You know, she was quite insulted. I think in the environment that we're dealing with now in this industry, you do have to be careful about that sort of thing. You know, especially when you look at the idea that there's a lot of female journalists who are trying really, really hard to kind of get their foot in this industry. And it's not necessarily a forgiving industry, I think. I mean, for the longest time, we've been fairly, I don't want to say male dominated so much as like male attitude dominated. Anyway, she walks away from this. I mean, apparently the dev, they thought it was a buddy of theirs, not the journo. And, you know, in the end, they weren't overly apologetic, and she was offended. You know, it is what it is. She was offended by this, and I think maybe fair, but only because here's the thing: you're demoing to a journalist. You've got a game that nobody else knows, and you're demoing to somebody who's going to go out there and talk about your game. If you want to, like, in terms of professionalism, that was a bad move. Like, that was just a dumb thing to do. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, for me, I've played plenty of games with buddies. You know, I'm talking like we're in a closed private group playing a 4-on-4 or something like that, and we're all joking about it. You know, that's one thing, but this is somebody who's out there doing their job professionally, and that is pretty much seen as a very derogatory insult. Like, you know, I'm dropping my nuts in your mouth. Maybe a bad decision for a professional to make.
I know exactly why this happened. Like, this happened at PAX East, and anybody who's been to a PAX or an E3 or any convention like that, you know that these devs were there for 12 hours that day demoing this game, doing the same thing over and over and over again. So one, they're tired. Two, they're bored as hell. They don't want to play the game anymore, even though they made it. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to spice it up a little bit. Was this a bad idea? Probably, but I mean, I think it's an honest mistake.
And well, here's the thing. And here's the way that I look at this. I mean, James, I don't know if you've opened up this article that we linked in here.
I have, yes.
Yeah. Here's the thing. This article, you should probably make sure that you link this over on the Press X page, because I want people to read this, because this article is kind of bullshit. This guy, Jasper Hamill, whoever the fuck he is a shitty fucking journalist, and I'm going to call him out on that. I mean, I'm going to send him this clip. I'm going to start it from exactly here and tell him that he is a shitty fucking journalist, because the way that he wrote this article is so fucking inflammatory and bullshit. You know what I mean? The heading for this article: man, team killed and virtually teabagged female journalist during shocking in-game rampage. is this fucking like National Enquirer or Inside Edition or whatever the fuck? Like, no. Okay, even Amanda, who this is the woman who was affected by this, okay? She talked about it on Twitter, but she's basically saying, she even came out after and said, like, granted, after that, he said he thought that I was his dev buddy, and holy shit, that was a mistake. She's basically saying, like, look, I get that it was a mistake. You guys probably could have handled it a little better. And this article specifically managed to take it like way over and above that, and actually got to the point where he said, you know, this guy's job is probably on the line. No, it's not. like no. I mean, let's not amplify it to something that it just isn't. You know, she thought it was unprofessional, and appropriately so. She said something. She didn't out the company or anything like that, you know. And this guy, obviously, like, he basically, I mean, whoever this journalist is, he saw the Twitter feed. He follows her. He probably follows Mike Footer, who is her boyfriend, and kind of saw the hubbub about it and managed to put it together in just the right way to make it a sensational news story, which is kind of bullshit.
Okay, not to too rudely interject, but if we're wondering what kind of a journalist would do such a thing, when you click on this article, you can see like a list of the other headlines, and just quickly perusing through some of the other things these guys like to publish, it feels like this guy's kind of just towing the Metro UK line.
Yeah, this is Metro. This is Metro at its fucking finest. It's a slag magazine. It's bullshit.
Oh, good God, is it ever?
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. This guy probably... Okay, so he wrote this knowing he writes for a fucking garbage website or garbage publication. So, yeah, maybe... I mean, I don't know. These are things that I like, at the end of the day, I kind of have a problem with. It's probably what pays his bills. But in the same respect, like, do you ever go to sleep realizing that you're a garbage human writing garbage bullshit?
Probably.
I guess if they pay you enough... I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're all journalists here. I mean, maybe me formerly, but we've all written articles. And I mean, there's, you know, we know what it's like to try and chase traffic, try and chase a hit, right? But at what point does it become disingenuine sometimes? And I mean, there were times I was writing things where I went, no, I don't want my name on this. This isn't something that I would be proud to write. You know what I mean? And this just seems so sensational and so over the top that he took a situation that was a not good situation, but turned it into this, like, you know, like, he might as well have been like, you know, he could have literally written a story where, like, you know, male dev hovers his dick over female journalist's mouth. Like, no, he didn't actually do that. But I mean, you might as well have put it in there. Like, he inflates it to more than it really needs to be.
I mean, calling it a shocking in-game rampage is inflammatory enough.
Rampage, like, oh, take that, female journos. Nuts in your mouth, bitches. Like, yeah, it's so over the top.
A rampage is what you were on the last episode of this podcast, Shawn. That's the definition of rampage.
Talking about people complaining about Sea of Thieves, fuck those people.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay not to like it. It's just not okay to, like, act like you're put out because you spent 30 cents or got a free fucking membership to Game Pass. Shut up.
Let's not go there again. Let's just talk about the releases.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I already said my piece last week.
So let's talk releases.
Okay.
Last week, it was thin. Yeah. Like, real thin.
Yeah, we're at that time of year.
Yeah, with God of War coming next week, people looks like they might have been running scared a little bit. And last week, the only two things of note that I could dig up, Penny Punching Princess and Minute.
Didn't Adventure Pals come out last week? I'm not 100% sure. But regardless, if you haven't played it, I think I spoke about it on the last podcast. If you haven't played it, it's absolutely fucking magical. So please do. I'm not sure what the actual release date was. I know it was over the last week or so, but that game is something special. It's a great little platformer.
You're right on that one. Totally whiffed on that. James, I feel like you were into Penny Punching Princess. That
I
doesn't roll off
wanted
the
to
tongue.
cover it. I wanted in on that game. It's Nippon Ichi America, and they do amazing stuff pretty regularly, and I had a pretty good feeling about this one. Everything I've read about it suggests that it's a sort of like actiony capitalist extravaganza, which can be fun, you know.
And Minute is kind of we got a review on the site. It's basically NES Zelda if you could only live a minute at a time.
Yeah, it's 60-second attempts at like individual levels. It's pretty minimal. It's like full out black and white. But everything I've seen about it is people like anything I've seen in from anybody who's played it is it's a lot better than you might give it credit for. So don't pass it over. It's actually worth taking a look.
And then coming out this week, Owlboy is coming to consoles, which was already out on PC a year and a half ago. Owlboy is rad. It is really, really good.
I'm trying so hard. I know that I can get it on a console today. I'm not one. I have a PC that's capable. I'm just not one to sit in my office and play on my PC. I love sitting on my couch or in bed and being lazy when I play my games. I'm trying so hard not to buy it on Xbox One or my PS4 because I know Switch is coming. And I hate port begging. I hate those people who are like, when's it coming out on Switch? Shut up. But I know this one's actually coming. Yeah, no, this one is actually coming to Switch, and it's perfect for it. So I'm going to do my best to hold out. Owlboy is such a fucking rad looking game.
It is. Yeah, it's tough to describe. I mean, if you look at it, it's just a 2D platformer. But it's got a lot going on. Well worth taking a look. Equally well worth taking a look at if you're on the Xbox One and haven't played it before is Hellblade.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're saying, I mean, they're saying if they hit a certain number of sales, they haven't quite said what it is, but they're basically saying if they hit a certain amount of number of sales, they're going to make another donation. They've already made significant donations based on the sales from the PS4 version for various mental health charities. So I hope it does really well. I mean, if only for that alone, but it's just such a good game. It dives into something that not many developers are willing to take on, and especially in such a stripped down and kind of blunt manner. They confront people who are dealing, they confront the idea of somebody dealing with schizophrenia in a very human way, despite, like the extravagance of it still being a game, you know what I mean, based in a fantasy situation. It's just so good.
Yep, it's fucking awesome.
It really is.
Couple other ones for this week. We got Double Kick Heroes, which, Shawn, you're actually repping.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where we got to give the full disclosure for this one, because this is a game that not only am I repping, it's literally like the first one since I've jumped over to the world of PR that was dropped in my lap and my lap exclusively. It's done by a developer called Headband Club. They're based out of France. And it's really cool. It's like this sort of, I call it like a genre bending game because it's rhythm based. But it's kind of like crossed with a shooter. It's post-apocalypse, and there's basically this heavy metal band trying to make their way through this wasteland. And as they're driving down the highway, they're playing, basically like their entire band is on the back of this Cadillac. It's just, we got sirens.
Yes, that's on my end. I apologize. Burned a house down earlier. They're just getting here.
That's what you get for living in the ghetto, son.
Yes.
No, but it's a really cool game, and one thing that I've been really happy about, I mean, I know it's inevitable that I might represent something that I have to kind of grit my teeth and maybe pretend like it's good. But this is a game that I actually truly enjoyed, and I love seeing the response from all the influencers and media. And now, because it released literally today being the 11th that we recorded, just the response from players who are it's overwhelming that people are liking what this game is. So if you haven't heard of it, or you want to think about checking it out, Double Kick Heroes. It's dirt cheap and it's a lot of fun. So
Awesome.
Yeah. Mario had a look at it for COG, and yeah, he really liked it. Articles on the site. I will link that one as well in the description of this cast /video/ wherever you're watching or listening to this. And finally, from Iron Galaxy, Extinction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
James, you reviewed it, didn't you?
I did.
I know that at some point we're gonna cross swords here in that.
Oh God.
Giggle, 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 we're all a bunch of boys. But eventually a game that I'm representing is going to be spoken about, whether it be on the cast or something, and I'm going to have to respectfully bow out. This is a co-worker of mine that is representing this game, and for that reason alone, I'm going to stand down. But I really want to hear what you have to say about this one.
I really like the premise, and I think the concept is really fascinating, although some could interpret it as a sort of rip-off of the Attack on Titan series. It is distinct enough that you don't really invite those sort of comparisons while playing. However, it does feel like kind of a stripped down version of itself. Like what we get as the final product is maybe it feels incomplete, which is strange to me because it's being pushed and marketed and branded and released like a big full spectrum AAA kind of game, but it's just not.
How would you feel about it if it was released at, say, $30?
I mean, I don't know that would especially change my opinion particularly. The price confuses me, but it doesn't particularly influence my final judgment.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, I grabbed a code for it and I booted it up and I didn't last long. And I hate to say it, it just wasn't for. It's not for me. And I saw a lot of the flaws that people are speaking about really early in, and I kind of cut loose because I didn't have to play it. You know what I mean? Obviously, you as being the reviewer, you're like, I'm in it for the long haul, but I cut loose real fast. Fast.
James, you were pretty fair with it. A lot of people were far less kind. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you actually, I mean, not that it was a good score, but you came out on top in comparison to a lot of other reviewers. They kind of ripped it a new one.
Well, I understand what they were getting at, and the things that they did well, they did do really well. It's just that the problems kind of tainted the experience to the point where I was constantly feeling this weird mix of elation and, like, pure blind rage. Sometimes one right after the other, sometimes both at the same time, and it just made it really difficult to say whether or not I 100% enjoyed it. But there was just too much of that, like, too strong of an undercurrent of frustration, sort of bringing down whatever joyous moments that would come up whenever you, like, for example, take down one of these enormous ogres. It tended to be sort of a, like, trying, exhausting experience from time to time that sort of undercut its own value, so to speak.
Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, it's funny, like, when they initially announced it, it looked cool, and then I saw it at E3 last year, and I went, oh, gosh, they got a long way to go. And then when I got my hands on it recently, I looked at it almost from the same set of glasses where I went, they got a long way to go, but that was the final product. So, I mean, it's too bad. I mean, I think they might have seen some more forgiving media if they had have priced it appropriately. I don't agree that this is priced at a full AAA type model. Like, it's just not the place for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see a lot of games that they don't stack up in terms of quality, and they go, hey, we get that we're not that, but we're going to give it to you for $20, and people are just a little more forgiving because they realize the dollar value on what they just spent, and they're like, you guys actually did really well for what I spent.
Well, that's like a whole genre that used to be really big. Back in the original Xbox PS2 era, games that were kind of B tier but were value priced and they were still pretty good. People really liked those games. Games like Blood Rain, for example, is one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of disappeared as the market widens out to the super AAA zillion-dollar budget and the tiny indie budgets.
Well, I think consumers are more savvy now than ever, especially considering we're in a market where on any given month you can have 200 or 300 games being released, especially when you add in the PC market, right? Console is obviously a lot more streamlined, but when you add in the PC market, there's so many people developing right now, right? And if you're honest about your standing or your stature, where your game lies in the hierarchy, people are going to respect that. I mean, granted, like, you get these games that are $10, for example, and they blow your mind and you go, I would have paid $30 for this. I mean, that's rare, but it does happen. You know what I mean? It's just, the bottom line is people are very aware of what they would expect for their dollar. And I don't think what was delivered from Iron Galaxy and Maximum here is worth 60, 80 in Canada. Like, could you imagine paying $80 for that, James?
No, under no circumstances would I pay that much money for that game.
God, I hope my boss doesn't listen to this podcast. I'm so fucking fired.
Well, let's switch gears from that sad talk, and
yes, let's do that.
And
let's fire me. He loves me.
Let's move into the perfect list.
The perfect list.
Perfect list. Okay.
All right, hit me,
James. You're about to descend into a hellish nightmare. The likes of which you've never seen.
Before we get started,
okay.
Can I just can we just say, as what we'll call a rookie hazing? I buckle under the pressure sometimes, so I say, as a rookie hazing, that James does the 4 pick.
All right, James goes first. I'm into that.
Take that, bitch.
So this week, what we're going to do, we're going to cover the 10 best, or 10 perfect, you might say, 10 perfect intro sequences.
All right.
Intro sequences.
So I'm not going to limit this too much. This is anything that would occur in what you'd consider the prologue of the game.
Okay, so we're not limited to like intro trailer type stuff, like before the player takes control. Like, are we allowed into where the player takes control, but it's still the early point of the game where there's still some things that happen?
Yeah. If you were going with a traditional, like a traditional movie would be, anything that would happen before the main title shows.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of options out there.
This is where I look forward to muting my mic so you don't hear me frantically like tick, 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 tick. Google, help me now.
All right, James, take it away. Pick number 1. Perfect.
Nope. No pressure.
Pick number 1. Perfect. I would definitely have to say,
make it count, but just don't make it be the one that I want to pick.
Well, honestly, I'd have to say that, like, The Last of Us is absolutely up there. I don't know if it's in a particular order. However, that's on the list for sure. For absolutely sure. That was a real game changer.
Mm-hmm.
The Last of Us, like, yeah, I mean, you know, actually, that's a really good example of the idea of, like, is it that opening cinematic or just your opening situation? Because you're navigating Joel as he's, like, carrying his daughter, trying to frantically escape the chaos that's going on. And when I fucking like. I don't give a shit at this point. I mean, this game's been out long enough that I like. If I'm spoiling this for you, just too fucking bad. When his daughter is dying in his arms, I was literally, legitimately crying. Like it hit me like a punch in the gut, and I was not. The funny thing, as I'm running, I knew the whole time I'm carrying her, and I'm like, she's gonna die. Oh my god, they're really fucking doing this. And when they did, it didn't lessen the impact. It sucked, man.
Well, it sets the tone so well for the rest of that series and how the world is, and sets up why Joel is the way he is. Yeah. That is,
that's just it. It really,
one of us was going to pick that for sure.
Yeah, it really sets up why Joel makes the decisions that he makes, even though they might not be what, quote unquote, the popular decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Shawn, you're up.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Is it my turn?
Oh yeah, we're going to you.
Oh Jesus. Okay, if I'm pondering like full intros. One of the ones that like kind of sticks with me is Witcher 2 Assassin of Kings, because it just it's just beautiful from start to finish, man. Like you got like these dudes fighting on a pirate ship, and like it's very like it's such an effective use of these like crazy slow-mos and shit like that. But like the dude who is the actual assassin. So you've got like these two big burly motherfuckers having it out like pirates on a ship, throwing fists. And the assassin dude, I remember he throws like a vial or some shit, and it turns everybody to ice. But you see it like it goes into slow-mo as this vial is floating over the two fighters' heads, and it's right when fist makes impact, and you see like it's like a slow-mo boxing match where you see like the guy's face distort. But then like it gets so crazy from there. There was that one bit where they're all frozen in place, and there's like that bit where there's like a jester kicking some frozen dude in the ass. It's funny.
You're right. That is like a pretty rad opening.
It's funny. I don't think that's representative of the game necessarily, but in terms of how to open it up and have everybody's jaw drop, it was so good.
Yeah, I think people have forgotten about The Witcher 2 since The Witcher 3 was so fantastic. But Witcher 2 it's a quality title.
Oh, of course it is. But I mean, we're talking intro sequences here.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my inner...
is not representative.
my inner, was it Allen Iverson? Do you guys remember the Allen Iverson practice talk? Do either one of you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
We talking about practice, right? Do you remember that? Is it just me?
No, I remember.
We're talking about intro sequences. All right. Intro sequences.
All right. I'm going to pick one that I think is literally the best intro sequence ever. So you might say it's perfect. And that's Mass Effect 2.
Might you? Mass Effect 2.
Mass Effect 2. And the reason for that is you finished Mass Effect 1, you saved or you killed the Council. Commander Shepard is an absolute unmitigated badass. So you start Mass Effect 2, you're like, yeah, badassery all over the galaxy. We're gonna wreck shop like nobody's business.
That's a long one too, isn't it? Like I remember that one.
It's pretty long, and it's like Reapers destroy the Normandy and kill Commander Shepard.
Yeah, I remember that one. I mean, I don't remember the
value,
details.
It's incredible. It is incredible. Yeah. Even now, it holds up really, really well with the pacing.
Well, I think that whole series still holds up very, very well, apart from Andromeda. I mean, I think Andromeda probably would have been received a little bit better if there wasn't a certain expectation to it. But yeah, no, Mass Effect holds up pretty much start to finish.
Mm-hmm. All right, James.
I think for my second pick, I'm going to go for something somewhat unconventional, if that's okay. Maybe unexpected.
We like stuff out of left field. Hit us.
Okay, I think Mega Man X has a really fantastic intro sequence because it teaches you how to play the game without a like barrage of like tutorial boxes and hand holding. Instead, the like layout of the level and the design of the enemies works to inform you of how the game's mechanics works, especially because there's new mechanics that have not been seen before in any of like the previous like 6 Mega Man games.
I really like that you picked something like way far out of left field. I appreciate that. There's certain games that are like, like there's just an expectation where you go, yeah, they're going to talk about that. Because there's just games, but it's true. Like, there's just some games that are so good that you go, yep, no, that's one they're going to talk about. You know what I mean? And I would not have expected that, but I completely respect why you would choose that.
Well, none of us could have possibly guessed that you would pick Mega Man X. And that makes it a perfect pick.
Perfect. Hey, before we get too much further here, and I mean this in the friendliest way possible, at some point, can we fuck with Alex Thomas a little bit more?
Yes. Episode 12, by the way, we had 66 uses of the word perfect.
Perfect. We said perfect 66 times?
It was a perfect number of perfect.
We perfectly said the word perfect 66 times. Perfect. Perfect
was the word. Okay.
Perfect was the word that we used.
And
no
I think
more.
It's perfect, but it's perfect.
No less than 66 perfect times. Right?
Yes.
All right.
Distributed in a perfect manner, I would say.
Perfect.
All right, Shawn, why don't you give us your next perfect pick?
This has got to be an ongoing joke because Alex Thomas is just the only guy who could do this job. He's perfect for this job, we might say.
Yes.
Zing!
Just perfect. So this has been a stall tactic. I don't think I'm picking anything too far out of left field here, but I do feel like it needs to be mentioned. Despite the number of times we've probably talked about this game, the intro to BioShock is ridiculous. It's just... I mean, there is that... Okay, so you start from the plane and you land in the water, and that's impactful enough as you're swimming towards this kind of lighthouse out in the middle of the ocean. But you take control of your character as you go down to... the elevator or the sub or whatever that takes you down into Rapture, but you listen to Andrew Ryan as you're viewing this crazy world that exists underwater, and they throw in like whales, like, I mean, very environmentally aware. And then when it opens up, you open up into this world, and so those first few moments where you're actually feeling, I would say, like a sense of danger, like where you wander out of like the safe place. I would include this in, I would say, like the intro sequence when you've got that one character that's like on the walls, the female telling you, like talking to you and stuff like that. It's just this overwhelming sense of dread and of fear, but then in the same respect, this awe of this world that's been thrown before you. That I mean, I don't know if anybody up until this game was released had seen a world that existed quite like BioShock, and they led you into it with absolute perfection. I mean, you were full out jaw dropped by time that door opened, and they're like, "Okay, you're on your own," and you're like, "Fuck, I don't know if I want to." You know what I mean? Like they managed to make you scared before you had a chance to even do anything.
Yeah, it was a truly horrifying environment, because it was so unique at the time. You really didn't know what to expect,
and that's especially the cool thing
if you'd avoided the the trailers and stuff leading up to it. It was very spooky.
And that's the cool thing about it, though, is that you point out the spookiness of it, and it's not really a horror game. Like that's not its nature. But I mean, when you go further into the game, like with the Doctor. Which was one of the first sort of like real mega scenes that you kind of come across, and you're trying to get yourself out of this doctor's office, and you're seeing these shadows on the wall. The way the cinematography, in a sense, that they used in this game was so effective, where you would turn a corner and you're literally looking for a shadow to move, and you're scared shitless. But it's not a horror game. Like, I mean, I don't know a lot of people that haven't played BioShock at this point, but I mean, if you haven't, pick up the collection and play it, for fuck's sake. It's just so good.
Absolutely.
Dude, it's just so what good. Have you done with your life?
Right?
All right, I'm going to make my next pick, and I'm going to go back in time, just like James did. And I'm going to pick Super Metroid.
Yes.
Yes. I agree with this choice.
I love that opening. It's so mysterious, especially for a game that's, over 20 years old now. It's, the mystery of the space station and the whole escape sequence is just fan-frickin-tastic. I have nothing but good things to say about Super Metroid generally, but the intro really hooks you. Even as me being less than 10 years old when it came out, I was like, wow, what is this?
Oh my god, I'm so old.
I gotta
Shawn,
say,
you were like 58 when Super Metroid came out, right?
Fucking sit on it, dude. I'm 58.
yeah, I only actually really properly played through start to finish Super Metroid when I was like 26, 27. And it absolutely holds up.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, we had the original Metroids on the NES or whatever, but there's a reason that Super Metroid is basically a catalyst for, basically half of Metroidvania. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a template.
There's a dynamic that game set up that other games tried to emulate. And I mean, you don't get that without, you don't get that type of title, you know what I mean, unless you stack up, right? There's nobody going, Christ, it's a goddamn sin to compare anything to Dark Souls, you know what I mean? It's not like it's a genre, you know what I mean? But people very willingly accept, Metroidvania, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because it's a style of gameplay that they were the pioneers of. And that game is fucking amazing.
All right, James, choice number 3 for you. Make it perfect.
Make it count.
Well, I think Final Fantasy VII is an excellent pick for next on the list.
Oh, you dick.
Was that dismay or
dick. I'm
Googling.
I'm
God,
Googling.
I'm so sorry, Shawn.
I'm Googling. I'm not gonna stoop to Trevor's level, but that's what I had in my head. You have to pick 4 and I only have to pick 3, so I'm gonna give you this. So please explain.
Okay. Well, I
don't care about your answer. You're an asshole.
Okay. Duly noted.
That's beer number 4, folks.
I just think in the context of the series and the time frame when it was released, that first sequence needed to absolutely blow people out of the water because it was venturing into new territory in so many ways. Both the way the story was being told and what the story was. And Squaresoft at the time absolutely fucking nailed it.
They did.
How about the music in that sequence?
Yeah, well, it was like a combination in that where like it was ahead of its time. I mean, people might look at that opening sequence now and go like, oh, it's dated. And well, yeah, obviously it is. But for its time, it was ahead of its time. You know what I mean? And it's just like they established that world really, really well. Like, especially the way when she kind of steps out of in like the opening, when she steps out of her abode or her home or whatever, and then they start to pan out and you see this world that this game is involved in, and you go, holy shit. Like, it sets up the scope for the game very, very well.
That occurs just before the title card, so I will let that part of it slide.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
I mean, that's like an hour into the game, but, it is before the title card, so,
Well, yeah, it does. Like, come on.
Yeah, I just got to give you a little bit of a rough time, buddy.
Well, Trevor's not here, so if not Trevor, you.
Yeah,
I guess James hasn't earned that right yet. Maybe next episode.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
Okay.
All right, Shawn, scramble. What's your pick if it's not Final Fantasy VII?
I'm not scrambling. I have more than one choice in my head. And I actually have 3 choices in my head, and I need to choose one of them. I have a few games that kind of like, I don't know, their intros are really cool, but I don't know if they kind of stand the test of time for me. Mostly because the games weren't necessarily, I would say, universally acclaimed. The intros, if you haven't seen them, and I'm just going to throw you their direction, Sunset Overdrive and Brutal Legend are both really cool games that kind of flew under the radar, especially Sunset Overdrive. Insomniac did that one. Really cool games that are worth looking at, and if that opening cinematic doesn't draw you in, it, like, I don't know, it probably should. But what sticks with me, these are my seconds. These are like my distance seconds. But a game that their intro pretty much nailed it for me was Borderlands. You're being introduced to the characters, and it's Cage the Elephant. What's the song? Fuck. I think it's No Rest for the Wicked. I don't know if I got the name of the song right, but you're being introduced to the characters, and this bus is like barreling through Pandora, just running over anything that's in its way. Basically, between the music and the visuals, that cell shading that we hadn't seen a lot of at the time, it just set that game up so well, to the point that when you actually took control of your character, you were like, fuck yes, bring it on. It's so good.
I can't disagree with that. Partially because Borderlands was the pinnacle of the Borderlands series.
It's funny. You know how we touched on earlier about like, oh, the best in the series. Nothing's topped the original Borderlands for me yet.
Hell no, not even close.
Well, they've had some interesting characters along the way. I'd say Borderlands 2 over I can't remember what they called the third one. They had the pre-sequel, yeah. The pre-sequel didn't stack up for me. 2 was still like, especially if you got into the DLC, some of the characters that they had in the DLC were really good, like genuinely inventive and really, really fun. But I think that initial, like, because we're seeing that attitude that the Borderlands franchise brings for the very first time, Borderlands was fucking amazing. You know what I mean? Like they tried to emulate it with 2, but they captured it so well with 1 that it was hard to beat.
Looking forward to Borderlands 3, which I assume is coming soon, because Gearbox has been pretty quiet. So I'm going to give my final pick here. I'm going to go with Batman Arkham Asylum.
I agree with this choice.
Because, 1, Arkham Asylum is the best of those Rocksteady games. And 2, right off the bat, they're wheeling the Joker away. He's been captured. And you're like, something is horribly amiss here. What is it? How's he going to get away? What's going to happen? And how the intro goes down is, it's just amazing.
Does that one not pan out to... I'm trying to remember, because I don't remember that one very well. I remember loving the game, but in the intro, does it not pan out at some point where, like, when he's being wheeled through to a TV screen where Harley is watching? Or is that, like, or no?
I don't remember that.
Harley's not captured. Yeah, no, see, I don't remember exactly, but something, I just remember this part where, like, the Joker's being wheeled through, and then it pans out, but it doesn't give like a full reveal, but you can see like a glove or a foot or something, and you're like, that's Harley. But
the part that just really sticks for me is Bats and Gordon looking at the Joker, and both looking extremely unsettled, even though their greatest foe has been captured. That's what does it for me.
And I think a lot of the magic in that is the fact that Mark Hamill is the perfect Joker. Like, there's been numerous people who have done it, but he's just so fucking good that you like.
He is Joker to me. Like,
oh, he is, and I've heard other people do Joker. Like, he didn't do the Joker in the animated The Killing Joke, for example. You know what I mean? And it's just like, the guy who did it was good, but he just wasn't right for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who I can't remember who voices Joker in the Rocksteady games, or sorry, not Joker, Batman in the Rocksteady games.
Kevin Conroy.
Yep.
Is it Conroy that does it?
Yeah. There was only one of the games. It was the Arkham. It was there was like one of the prequel games.
The Origins one.
Wasn't those guys? Yeah.
That's right.
But,
that's right. And then but Conroy also does a lot of the animated series stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's right, because I remember I watched something where Kevin Conroy wasn't the guy doing Batman, and I went like, who's this guy and why is he talking? Because you just have an expectation of what Batman sounds like, and that wasn't it, you know? And it's like trying to watch fucking Batfleck. Like, fuck Batfleck.
I have a vision of you sitting in a chair staring at a screen yelling, "That's not Batman!"
I can't deny that it's actually pretty on point.
How well do I know you?
Yeah, apparently better than I would like you to, because we watched Justice League for the first time like maybe 3 weeks ago, my wife and I, and I'm like, I just can't get behind Batfleck. Like, fuck this guy. Like, I can't buy into him as a character. His version of Batman makes me want to fucking throw up. I hate him. I fucking hate him. Anyway, that's not video games. That's just me being angry.
Opinions with
yeah, that's
Shawn.
And perfect
do you guys
at the same time.
You guys remember the Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy on Saturday Night Live? Strong opinions with Shawn Petraszczak. I'll take it. Like, we can make that a weekly thing. I'm cool with that. Strong opinions.
Sounds like a bit.
Might be. We've been looking for our hook, Paul. Is that it?
Yeah.
Strong opinions with Shawn Petraszczak. I like
contest
this way more than I should. That's so good. Anyway,
the contest we run will be how many weeks does it last before Shawn either gets fired or told to stop it by the boss.
That's actually a very fair question to ask. I'm not sure if my boss listens to the podcast. I might not want him to, but if he did, that's definitely on the table.
Yeah.
All right, JP, give us the final perfect pick for perfect intro sequences.
No pressure, no pressure.
Perfect intro sequence. No pressure, he says, while knowing that much pressure is actually present. I think I
Come on,
go
hit me with something good.
something good, he says. Oh, well,
Forget good. We want perfect.
yeah, I was gonna say, I could settle for something good, although just because it's been on my mind constantly since it's been released a year ago. I want to say Breath of the Wild, but in actuality, the intro sequence is so long that it's hard to qualify it. But because it's like, I think if you pace it out right, it's probably about an hour, which is crazy for an intro sequence.
I would almost say too long. I mean,
Yeah.
notwithstanding the quality of the game, but to ease you in, probably too long.
Yeah, but like, on the other hand, you could also say that the intro sequence could just be like that first 5 minutes where you're in the cave, you get a little bit of background, and then you walk out of the cave and into the world. You could almost compact the intro sequence to that one moment where you're like, you see the whole map, so to speak, spread out before you, and the music swells up just perfectly. If we're considering that the intro sequence, that's absolutely my pick. But if we're considering the whole first island, then,
This is your call and your perfect pick.
Well,
We have the right to disagree with you, but we tend to be pretty friendly around here. I mean, unless we're talking Guitar Hero.
You don't want to open that can of worms, buddy. We're already bordering on 2 hours.
So, given the set of ground rules it just laid down, I'm going to say absolutely Breath of the Wild, just for the intro shot, so to speak, of you exiting the cave.
I think that's a fair pick. I would not. I honestly, I probably there might be a few games that I would say that I want to give honorable mentions to, but I wouldn't disagree with that pick.
I agree with you, James.
Yeah.
That specific moment I thought was incredible, especially the first time I played it. My opinions of the game fell slightly after that. It's still obviously fantastic, but that single moment was a perfect intro sequence.
Agreed. Can we do our 30 seconds of perfects now, or like just to fuck with Alex?
We kind of already did it, but let's go. Perfect.
Well, do we already perfect talk about how perfect the perfect list and perfectly expecting
perfect
Alex to perfectly pick what's perfect about the perfect list, and I want him to make sure that he there's a discrepancy between perfectly and perfection and the word perfect.
Do we want to count of all those
instead
things?
Instead of perfectly or perfection or like some made up word like perfectness.
It has to be perfect.
It has to be perfect.
It perfectly has to be the word perfect, not perfection, not perfecto even.
You know?
No, not perfecto. No, it has to be perfect, like perfect. Ending in the T. Perfect.
Perfectamundo.
Nailed it.
Well, that doesn't count though, because it has to be perfect.
As you know, I think it was perfect.
Yeah, I think it was perfect too.
Oh my god, I can't wait to listen to him in Slack where he's like, "You fuck sticks."
On that note, we are gonna get out of here. We're gonna get out of your hair for another week. If you liked what you heard, share it with everybody you know. Get on our Facebook group. We don't share your data with anybody. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that.
The most appropriate thing, or like the most timely thing that we could possibly say, is we don't share your data with anybody.
Yep.
If you're still on Facebook, for that matter. Yep. But yeah,
if
press
you
X to
it,
podcast
Facebook.
Up. Join us.
Yeah,
join us there. Not data sellers.
We had a new I'm gonna throw him out this mention because I noticed him today. But we had a new guy, Mr. Oliver Ward, who says he's been listening since the beginning. So thank you, Oliver, and we're glad you're here.
Yeah, next week we'll get back into fielding some more questions from the community on the Facebook group. I just kind of ran out of time this week because I don't know. Shawn had 4 beers. I don't know.
You know what? Joke's on you. I had 5 beers.
Joke's on all of us here at Press X the podcast, where it's Friday the 13th. Thank you very much for listening. We will see you back here next week. Peace out, everybody.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.